Ready to go. Okay, and we're good. So Professor Yoon, it's all you.
Okay, so first of all, welcome to the alumni panel. So it's my great pleasure to introduce the Alicia and Jeremy to you. So let me give just a few minutes for you to introduce yourself to computer science students. So let me start with Alicia and then Jeremy.
Sure. Yeah, so my name is Alyssa. I went to Widener and graduated in 2015 with a computer science degree. I did the co-op program with Widener, and I actually did that in 2013, and I got hired by the same company I still work for in 2013, Lifecycle Engineering.
So your co-op experience led to the full-time position in the same company, and you have been there for almost 10 years. So great.
Right.
So, okay, good to see you, Alicia. So Jeremy, would you introduce yourself to the computer science senior and junior?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Jeremy Hofer, graduated in 2018 from Widener. I was actually a transfer to Widener, so I started in 2016 there, and came from Bucks County Community College before that, if anyone's aware. Yeah, finished out my bachelor's at Widener. It was an excellent experience. And currently I work for Capital One as a senior software engineer, work in our card tech tower, which is responsible for all the technologies behind the credit cards for Capital One. And specifically, I work on one of the platform teams for the customer-facing UI. So the website, I guess, is a better way to put it. So when you log into the website to service your credit cards, that's where my team comes in. Like we're behind a lot of technologies and stacks of how the whole entire website works.
Great, thank you. So my first question will be to both of you. Say, can you share some of your technologies and systems and languages you find yourself using in your current work? So let me start with Alicia first.
Sure. Yeah, I do a lot with VBA, SQL, a little bit of PHP, and then I'm just actually starting to dabble into .NET a little bit. And then some of the reporting services that we use are Power BI, Tableau, and Microsoft Access.
Okay, so you're mainly working on the designing and implementing database related systems. So thank you.
Right.
How about Jeremy, in the fintech world? So what are you using for the like a system and languages and technology and so on?
Sure. Yeah. So at Capital One, we're kind of unique. We're totally cloud-based on AWS. So a lot of our technologies are based off of the AWS native services like Lambdas, EC2, ECS, Kinesis, you name it. If it's AWS, our company tries to leverage that from a tech perspective. But then getting into individual tech stacks, from a back-end perspective, a lot of the services are, I'd say majority of the services are Java-based, like Java Spring Boot applications, serving as to implement REST APIs and microservices. Then there's also a whole bunch of legacy SOAP services, which I think are also Java-based. There's a lot of Python services as well, especially for the Lambdas on Amazon. A lot of those are usually built out with Python or sometimes Node applications. Well, then getting into what I work on quite a bit is the website. So the main website for Capital One is built out in Angular. So do a lot with Angular framework and a lot of knowledge there. But then there's some also some other one of the customer facing applications is actual account application form. That's written out in React, which I haven't personally worked with, but that's pretty big here. And then on the internal side, for our agents, our website is built actually in Vue. So from a front end framework perspective, we have pretty much everything: Angular, Vue, React, from as far as the current major Node front end frameworks are concerned. The back end, typically Java Spring Boot applications for REST applications, and then hodgepodge for a whole bunch of other stuff built on AWS.
Okay, so looks like you are doing a lot of like coding and programming in developing those systems using Java and Python. And I'm glad to hear that because we have been teaching Python for the freshman class, and then we are teaching Java for the sophomore class. So based on your answers and based on your experience in current companies, my next question is, what are the typical entry-level positions for a computer science student within your organization or your company, and within the field in general? So what does it take for our junior, senior to get a job in that field? So for this question, let me start with Jeremy first, and then Alicia. Yeah.
Sure.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm actually at my third company out of college. So previously worked at 2 biotech companies before this, before arriving at Capital One. So definitely starting out, answering the question first from like entry level at Capital One. Capital One does have what they call their TDP program. I'm forgetting exactly what it stands for, but it's essentially an entry-level program for students right out of college to bring them in, and they pretty much go through a 2-year training program where they rotate through a bunch of different departments and teams at Capital One to really train up their skills and knowledge and prepare them to be full-time associates after going through that program. But then after that, let's say if you have probably 2 to 4 years experience, you're starting to get into the senior associate or software engineer level, depending on like internally, there's a few different names for stuff. It's for us, it's the senior associate level. Other companies would be called the software engineer level. That's the next level up. So a lot of people start there, but yeah, really getting in. So my first job out was at a biotech, and like I definitely came in with some unique experience from Widener there. Like they were looking for people specifically that were working on cancer diagnostics, doing genetic testing for cancer diagnostics. So Widener, I got a lot of exposure to bioinformatics and related through the research I did as a senior. So that was pretty unique, but really starting out, like the big things they look for are, and the big things I look for, like when interviewing people, are kind of a good general knowledge of different languages and basic development experience. So like definitely like you always hear like your data structures and your algorithms, like just being able to take a problem really quick and sort of talk to it, work through it, really provide some good sort of critical analysis and thinking on the spot. And mixing that with sort of like how you are as a person, like if you're given a situation, like how would you react? How have you reacted in the past in similar situations? It's getting into a behavioral style questioning. I'd say those are really the big things, like just being able to like take a problem and solve it, but then also like how you'd react to a problem. Like I probably wouldn't about to gotten sideways on the question, but like definitely like I think minimums having some good different tech experience, being able to like pretty rapidly talk to some different points and show that you're a good critical thinker right out of the bat, and someone that can communicate well as well. Like those are huge.
Great. How about Alicia?
Yeah, I would say, typically we try to bring you on as an intern first, and then you can kind of dabble into some different things, try out some different projects, see what you really like, what your strengths are. So just based off of like my experience of how I advanced in the company, it started as an intern, and then it went from, I believe it's called like an associate programmer to a junior programmer, something like that. Stayed there for a little bit, and then typically it would advance to something like just a programmer in general, or a software developer, and then software engineer.
Great. Those are great answers. So my next question will be, based on your experience in the field, now, do you think which skill do you believe are most important for a computer science student? Do you think technical skills is more important than some other skills, or do you believe you need they might need both, like a technical skill and like a software skills and so on? So can you share some of your thought about that question? Let's see. Let me start with Alicia first.
Sure. Yeah, I would have to say probably both in my experience. Definitely, being pretty strong and understanding the logic of programming just so that you can apply it to other languages. I would say that, like starting off with Python in Widener is a great start because it's an easy language to start with, and you learn the basics of programming so you can apply it elsewhere. As far as like technical skills, I would also say yes, just because when you go into other companies, sometimes they use different software packages. Like for example, we use Jira, which I had never had exposure to before, like pushing code and stuff like that. So learning how to work different software packages, I think, is useful. In addition to doing a little bit on your own outside of school, I didn't do too much of that actually when I was in school, and I wish that I had. I ended up doing it, later on after I had graduated, but I think that would have been like super useful, trying to do some little side projects on my own.
Okay, great. So that's great advice. So definitely I will pass that advice to our and junior, senior, so they will be able to do some kind of like a practical, some side project. How about Jeremy?
Yeah, so I'd say for getting your foot in the door and getting a job, technical skills are probably where a lot of the focus is. Like being able to pass your interview questions that you always kind of seriously, jokingly, but also seriously being like, hey, you need to do your leak code questions for the interview. But once you're in the door and you're in, I find it's really the soft skills, not the technical skills, that stand out. Me as someone who's end up mentoring a lot of people, so long as someone's willing to learn, I can take time and teach them anything or everything they want to know. But what's almost impossible for me to do is really teach people to be critical analysis, like do critical analysis and think critically on problems, have that desire to learn and grow and really just expand their knowledge in whatever domain we're working in. So in those regards, like the people that I end up enjoying working with the most, and what ends up also correlating to like what I think is most important is really having like good critical analysis skills, thinking and logic skills, and having a desire to learn and like take ownership of stuff. Like that's always stood out. Like pretty much all the tech stuff and like specifics of what's going on, that follows suit if you're able to really, if you're coming in with like that mindset that like you can really analyze something and learn something. The tech side and specifics can get taught, no problem.
Oh, thank you. My next question will be, and so when you look back your days at Widener days, like more than 9 years ago, more than like 3 years ago. So what did you learn at Widener that you feel has helped you find success in your career? Can you briefly share your thought about that question? So let me start with the let's see, Alicia first. What is one?
Sure. Yeah, I would say the curriculum is beneficial, and the way that it's I guess laid out like in order, I think makes a lot of sense. Like I was saying, like starting with Python is really useful just because it's an easy first language to start, and it gives you the basics and the fundamentals. And then I would have to say Java is super important. Like having that in there is really helpful because Java is used so widely.
Okay, well, thank you. So that's good to hear about our curriculum letter. How about Jeremy? So what did you learn? Something that might be very helpful for you to success in your career right now.
Yes, I mean, I stayed very diverse in like electives and things I took, and I think really having that diversity and like really learning a bunch of different things gave me like a better, well-rounded general knowledge of tech, than also just approaching problems in a way that has allowed me to flourish. Like from specific tech things, like yeah, definitely learn like Python, Java, like that helps. But I mean, there's a lot that you can learn with those that just unfortunately in the 4 years here in university don't always have time for, and you'll definitely learning just like pedal to the metal once you're actually in a job, and you'll just really round out your knowledge there. But again, kind of like in my previous answer, like really developing those skills of like critical analysis and like that desire to learn, like I'd say those are what I got most out of Widener, like just with like taking the various like logic courses and like the diversity of different like computer science courses and electives that were offered, because I took parallel computing, I took databases, cryptology, others I'm forgetting off the top of my head, and then got involved with some really exciting senior project work with all the cancer research that allowed me to just really develop those critical analysis skills and ways to really think through problems and be able to just sort of take any problem that comes my way and rationalize it to a tech solution of some sorts. So it's kind of just the full encompassing. I wouldn't say it's any one thing, any one particular skill, like, hey, go and learning parallel. Like learning parallel definitely helped when I went to my first job doing biotech, like have knowledge of the Sun Grid engine on the cluster, which if you haven't taken parallel there, like I'm probably already talking to people's heads. Like learning stuff like that helped there because a lot of their technology was built on that. But definitely more like the soft skills and whatnot. Like that's been that I was able to really develop and train was the big thing coming from Widener.
Okay, great. Those are great answers. I have another quick question in my mind. So if you mind, say, would you tell us about your like a work environment and what does a typical day in the life looks like for you in your companies, both of you? So let me start with Jeremy first for this question.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll talk to maybe like two different examples, like one now, but then one for like previous team I was on, because it can kind of depend on what specifically your team does and works on, and kind of the breadth of stuff that your team's involved in. So right now I work on a platform team that really defines standards and works very high level for all credit card features in the Capital One website. So we do a lot of planning and coordination with dozens of teams to align on requirements and understand problems the teams are trying to solve and come up with effective platform solutions. So right now we're working on figuring out the requirements for a new framework for the website to allow the dynamic building of components and UI elements based off of backend service responses. So like today we've been in a bunch of different tech meetings, just working to resolve and understand those requirements with a number of different teams who have worked on this and have more specific domain knowledge of really working in it, but taking that to like a platform perspective of like, hey, other teams want to come into the UI and use this. We're really trying to rationalize that. So I've been doing a lot of tech meetings with that, but then we're taking those meetings plus a whole bunch of documentation and then going into the UI code to see what's been implemented so far as this framework is concerned, and provide recommendations for how it can be built out and improved. If there are improvements that need to be done, or if we just need to better define processes of how to implement within it and utilize it. Or if we need to just say like, hey, given the new requirements for this thing we're working on, it's going to be safer, more effective, and provide a better developer and customer experience to scrap it all and build up fresh given the latest versions of requirements that we have. So that's kind of what like my current day is right now. Really just in those different meetings and having this pile of documentation and UI code and just really trying to rationalize everything. But other times when we just have like feature development, it's just a lot of days will just be heads down coding, working on building out new features for the customer, be it doing actual front end work or back end work. But then also at Capital One, they have so getting kind of more to what another sort of day in life might look like. And definitely one that I've had before and I think is good to communicate. At Capital One, in a lot of companies, they have what you call you build it, you own it models. So if you build a service or a feature of some sorts and it's in production, like you're the owners of it. So with monitoring and everything required for that service, you're responsible for it. And a lot of that also means performing production support. So on my previous team, we owned actually a core critical API for Capital One for all the credit cards. The API is used for getting the card holders from an account. And whenever any user logs into the UI, our API was called. So if our API ever went down or was having issues, it immediately impacted all customers. So there were a number of times while my team owned that service and I worked on it that a day of into life was, let's say, getting paged at 5 a.m. in the morning to failures happening for the service and having to jump on a Zoom call in order to start doing root cause analysis into what's going on. Why are things failing? And then taking that to, well, once we have an idea, like, is it our service? Is it downstream services? If it's our service, what exactly is wrong with our service? Is it infrastructure? Is it like some edge case code that's related to, that's failing? Really doing that analysis on our side, or if it's downstream, it's like, hey, communicating out to the other tech teams, like, hey, your thing's failing. Can you jump on and pretty much rinse and repeat the process from their perspective? And with that involves like a lot of digging into logs in Splunk. We use Splunk for a lot of our logging. We also have dashboards built out in Datadog and New Relic. So really just like coalescing all this data and information from all these different logging and reporting websites, to react to environment and production issues that are affecting customers, and really just working as expedited as we can to return and resolve service to the customers in order to avoid high severity, what would be considered a high severity incident where like maybe hundreds of thousands of customers aren't able to access their account. Which like if you've ever not been able to access your bank account or stuff, like you know how frustrating that is. So that's also what a day in the life can look like, just kind of getting paged at any time and having to go and figure out what's going on. Like as an example, this weekend I end up getting a page 3:30 in the morning on Saturday. Systems went into what's considered high availability mode for coming out of daylight savings time. So like, unfortunately, it was an edge case that we missed. So like our service was failing due to us not properly covering this edge case. So we're going to be having to work on that going forward. But so like I was up at 3:30, have to figure out what's going on. Why is this failing? Yeah, so that's another example of the, depending where you're at, the not quite so glamorous side of day in the life.
Wow, it looks like a lot going on in your typical day. How about Alicia? So yeah, can you share your like a typical day in the job?
Yeah, so I typically talk one-on-one with my customers. We are a defense contracting company, so I used to in the past, like when I was an intern, my boss would kind of be that middleman. But as I got more comfortable, now I am just talking directly with each customer. So I will typically every week have a stand-up meeting with my new boss now, or with other teammates, other programmers, logistics people even. So I have a weekly stand-up meeting, kind of, just like a big umbrella of what needs to get done as a team. And then individually, I do keep my own tasking. I have all of my action items that I need to complete each day pretty much. But I'm usually working on several projects at once. So I kind of have to prioritize, when things need to get done. Similarly to how you would in school, like when things are due, like, when you have to study for a test or whatever. So I prioritize whatever project, needs to get done first, certain action items. So, that morning I may go in and start working on debugging code. I may work on some queries. I may work on adding some functionality. So it all depends on what action items are due for that deadline. But I'm typically on a daily basis always editing code. And then I'll be even scheduling meetings with the customer. So I'm in quite a few meetings, usually update meetings, showing the product, what's different from the last time. So there's a lot of like face-to-face communication as well. And then also communicating with other team members, if they're helping you on a project, kind of keeping track of what they're doing, just making sure you're all on the same track to meet the deadline.
Great. So as we wrap up this alumni panel, and is there something that give some kind of advice for a junior and a senior, and some of them are looking for co-op positions, internship positions. Some are looking for a real entry job in the real world. So would you share some of your advice for them? So let me start with Alicia first.
Yeah, I probably have like a couple tips. I definitely would recommend doing like a co-op or an internship of some sort, just because it helped me out quite a bit. You learn a lot also. It gets your foot in the door. It's something to put in your resume. Also, like kind of what I said earlier, like maybe doing a little bit of your own side projects, just messing around with some, programs on your own outside of schoolwork, I think really helps you learn as well. And something also you can add to your resume. In my experience, a lot of recruiters like to see that you do outside work. And you can even put that on your resume, like, hey, I built this program, and show it to them. They'd be more than happy to see it. And then I guess I would say, other than that, just making sure like you work well in teams. I think that's, pretty common in the computer science world. You're almost always working on a team of programmers.
Great. So those are great advice. How about Jeremy? Would you share some of your advice for the senior and junior in computer science program?
Yeah, so definitely like trying to get you out of college and into, let's say, the real world. Definitely, like Alyssa said, like internships and co-ops help. So like if you're still in your freshman, sophomore, and junior year, definitely look for that. Like I had an internship with the Navy between my junior and senior year, and it was excellent opportunity. I actually got to that from being a tutor at my at the community college I went to. So it's sort of one experience ended up feeding into another long term, which again, like initially when I was going to be finishing at Widener, I was going to go work for the Navy. Just pretty much, they liked me so much from that internship. Like I was lined up to actually go work from them, but for my senior project, I worked on cancer research there at Widener, and that was much more of a passion project and something that I just felt better about and enjoyed doing much more than the work at the Navy. And that's something that by chance learned that was going on at Widener and worked on it. And then that actually led to my actual first job out of college, where like pretty much the research I did there and the knowledge skills I learned, it gave me a good foundational knowledge to like get out into my first job. So I guess kind of summarize, like be ready to learn, have a strong desire to learn. You're going to be learning each and every day on the job. And honestly, if you're not learning in the first couple of years, I would say look for a different job, unless like you need some stability or something like that. Like that's definitely been the big reason why I've jumped around to now my third job. Fourth role is just I'm constantly looking to learn and grow because I'm still pretty young. So like that's been huge. But also take opportunities that come your way. Pretty much through college, like I started out actually as a nursing major, and it was while I was in that major that I got into computer science. And when I started computer science, I had no idea what I wanted to do. But like after my first semester in computer science, like I already mentioned, I started as a tutor. After working as a tutor and coming to Widener, an email came through saying like, hey, someone's reaching out to the computer science department for a tutor for computer science. Anyone interested? And I'm like, hey, I'm a tutor. I would love to do that. That then led into my internship job over the summer. And then I got involved in the research, and that then led into my first job. So like, just kind of because I was open to these different opportunities and experiences, it got me to where I am today. And it's kind of just similar patterns have followed just through the jobs I've been at to where I am in my current role, which it's very busy role, but like I love it. It's excellent. So be open for experiences, be ready to learn, really develop your critical analysis skills, and always try to put your best work forward. There's a lot of people who just put out crap. Like I'll just say it now, they just don't put out, it shows that they don't really have any pride in their work. I guess that's really the word for it. Like take some pride in your work, like take some time to really learn things. Think about it like if you were getting this product, if someone's doing this for you, if you were a customer, how would you want this to be? And make sure that like things are working up to your standards. Those are all like some of the biggest points and advice that I would provide.
Great. Well, again, thank you, Alicia and Jeremy, for participating in this alumni panel and then sharing very valuable advice and great thought with us. And definitely we will pass your advice and your thought to junior and senior. So hopefully they will follow your advice, and then hopefully they will find a job, and they will be like successful in their field, like both of you. So So hopefully I will love to see both of you on campus, and I really enjoy having a great conversation with both of you. So thank you.
Thank you.
I
Yeah,
would just like to add a thank you to Dr. Yoon for facilitating such an interesting conversation, and to Jennifer for starting it, and most of all to Alyssa and to Jeremy for just being so generous in sharing your experiences. And as a non-technical person, just one of my takeaways was how you've each built such beautiful, rich careers with different approaches. Alyssa growing continually and contributing more with your institutional knowledge with the same company, and Jeremy, being open to that learning and shifting to different companies and cultures. And I think that's such a valuable takeaway for our current students, that there's more than one way to develop in your career. And so thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it.